Welcome one and all to yet another juicy, red-hot, sizzling Kings of War battle report. This time, temperature is off the scale because look at the sheer magnitude of this. We've got 2,600 points. Ogres versus Goblins in the push scenario. You can see there's a token right in the centre there, and quite a hefty amount of the deployments have appeared on the left flank, as from the Goblin perspective, and very little over there on the right side for the Ogres. So let's go through the lists, shall we? On the Goblin side, we have a Troll Bruiser, and this Bruiser has the banner of the Griffin. We have the first of many Troll Hordes, this one with Dwarven Ale. Behind them we have a Whiz, and this particular Whiz is armed with Critter's Call, and he's mounted on a Fleabag. Then you can see there's a Rock Lobber in the bottom left there. The Mincer is behind those trolls, and that is carrying all three of the push tokens for the Goblin side. There is a horde of Spitters, partially in those woods. As we move down, you can see there's another Whiz. This one has Scarlet Moor's Vernulian Amulet, giving it Lightning Bolt 5. We have Grogger's Goons, a horde of them, partially sitting in that piece of difficult terrain with two War Trombones behind them. You can see the other three Rock Lobbers. The big, gigantic ball lobber is Grogger's Great Lobber, so plenty of Grogger representation in this list. Behind the Goons, there is also another Troll Horde. I think this one is armed with the Chalice of Wrath. Then there's a regiment of Spitters on the right there, and between them and the Goons, there is a Flaggit with the Diadem of Dragonkind, the pretty standard. I always seem to go for that option. Over here we have two more Troll Hordes. One of them has the Brew of Courage. One of them doesn't have anything. There is another War Trombone behind them. There are two regiments of Fleabag Rider Sniffs and a King on a Fleabag between them. So spreading some inspiring around, getting ready to help out with his bow shots as well. There is the Centre token, and onto the Ogre side. So you can see that there are some Abyssal allies here. There are two small units of Tortured Souls and an Archfiend, who does not have the Lightning Bolt upgrade. There are some Ogre Shooters as we get onto the bulk of the Ogre force, and there are quite a few characters here, so hopefully I remember which one has which items. I think the one with the Shooters, that's a Warlock behind there with Blizzard, I think. And then moving along, there are some Ogre Warriors, and behind them is Grokkagamok, and next to them, I believe, is Nomagarok. And Grokkagamok's finest Braves are carrying all the push tokens, and behind them is another Warlock, and I think that one just has healing ability. Then there are two hordes of Boomers and a Boomer Sergeant. Each horde has a different upgrade, so one is Elite and one is Vicious, but pretty much the same effect. Game. Confirmation of where the tokens are there on the Grokkagamok's finest Braves, and all the tokens on the Mincer. So 3 tokens each, and the one in the centre. So turn 1, and the Goblins get first turn, or the choice, and I was always going to take it with all my master mounts of artillery, hoping to start plinking away damage. I'm up against multiple healing sources. I think there are 2 quite substantial sources of healing, especially when they're around hordes. They get extra dice on their spells, the Warlocks. So I'll be hoping to put damage on more units than they can feasibly heal, or pile all the damage on a unit and just completely remove that unit so it can't be healed. Either one of those tactics. So you can see the Trolls have gone way up there as fast as they could go. One of them is going to be hopefully heading for the Ogre Shooters, which are up and to the left in this picture. And my little fast wing here with the 2 Sniff regiments and the King, they're hoping to hold up all the enemy flyers that are all on this side. So it's just the battle of speed 10 units over here. I'm hoping if they can just cancel out the flyers, that'll allow me to do what I want with my ranged attacks on the other side of the table, which are units I don't want being harassed by flyers. So if I can keep them all the way over here, good news for me. In the middle, most things are moving up. I haven't moved up into range of the Boomers though, so I haven't gone within 18 inches of the Boomers, so they won't be able to shoot in their first turn. I've just moved up so that all my units can shoot though. So that means moving the Spitter units. And I'm going to be able to cast some spells with my wizards as well, and then it's Rock Lob time. You'll notice that I've got lots of height 1 units in front of my rock lobbers. That's so I can see over them and hit the ogres, where everything is pretty much height 2. There is that hill providing a little bit of cover for some of them though, so I won't be able to see all of them. And what do the rock lobbers accomplish? Well, land a hit on the shooters. One of them hits and does 8 damage. So, wavering the shooters, which is very, very tasty. Slow them down for a turn. And this little shooting battery here, trombones are obviously not in range, so what do the spitters accomplish? They do some damage to the warriors, but I believe they iron resolve them back. Then over here, what does my shooting on this side of the table do? We've got the spitter horde and we've got the lightning bolt from the whiz. I don't think he's got any reason to use Critter's Call yet, so with their combined might, 6 damage end up on the boomers there. So making a start on them. And over here, what do the sniffs and the king do? Well, they put 5 damage onto those tortured souls. And that's how it looks. So kind of laying down the gauntlet on the right hand side with those trolls. I believe that there may be line of sight from one of the tortured soul units into the flank of the trolls, but I think it would technically be a front charge. I think they're in the front arc, but they could see the flank, so they could do a frontal charge into the trolls if they want, I believe. Don't know whether that was actually checked by my opponent, but I'm going to tell you he doesn't go for that charge, or doesn't look to see whether it was possible. But I'm pretty sure it would have been front anyway, so I wouldn't have been too displeased if a flying unit like that just goes into the front of my trolls, because they would get munched. Sure. So, going into Ogre turn 1. And you can see, they don't want anyone charging that Archfiend. They don't want the king heading in there and just dropping 1 damage on it and stopping it flying. That would be annoying. So they've made this little wall of tortured souls around the Archfiend, and they're ready to strike now. The Archfiend and the tortured souls there will threaten my trolls if I keep them facing away from this area as well. Everything else moving up, getting ready to be shot, apart from the shooters, who are just wavered at the back there. Everyone else moving forward. You can see there's little orange dice down there, which are representing the charge distances of some of my units. So obviously, wanting to move up and remain out of charge range, especially with something like boomers, all you have to do really is get to within... If you're up against trolls, for example, get up to within about 14 inches or so, 13 inches even, so that you can't be charged, but it's very difficult for the trolls to get out of range of your breath attack then. And the ranged goodness going on here, so there's some lightning boltage from some of these characters, and 2 damage are plinked onto my lightning bolt wizard. And blizzard, what does it do? 6 damage onto one of the rock lobbers. And the wizard is dead, and so is the rock lobber. So one of them is down, and I think that was the one that hit in the first turn as well. So only 3 lobbers remaining. And there's how the battlefield is looking. And what am I thinking at this point? Well, there's no real need for me to engage just yet, I think. On the right, I want to send one of those troll units forward towards the shooters. But I need to check after this whether I can get them in range, or out of range, of the flyers over all the way on the right, should I say. And in the middle, I don't think I'm going to be shoving much too far forward. I'm going to throw a couple of units up there to try and tempt some multi-charges in and leave the enemy within range, possibly to be flanked by some of my units, which I'm hoping to set up. And then I'm going to be using Critter's Call this turn, of course, as well, because I'll be going to within range of the boomers, so I want to throw that on them. Turn 2 for the Goblins. So you can see that one of the units of trolls have turned to face the threat of those flying units, and the sniffs have positioned themselves around the wall, so anyone charging them will hopefully be hindered, unless there's some double charging going on, which could prevent that. And the war trombone is staying out of charge range of all the flyers as well. The king charges these tortured souls and does a bit of damage on them, and that'll stop them flying. You can see more shooting damage is done to the unit at the front there as well. And these trolls have moved this way. They're just able to get out of charge range of all the flyers, and they're within 12 inches of the shooters. So if the shooters want to get out of my charge range next turn, that means they're not going to be able to shoot. So it's a bit of a dilemma they've been left in. Grogger's goons have pushed up, offering the multi-charge, and with the goons it's very risky just charging 1 unit into them. There's a decent chance they could survive that, especially being inspired, so multi-charge is a safe way to take them out, but then I've got things like the trolls behind there. I've got tons of breath attacks down there. I've got the mincer. So it's not going to be fun times. What do the Rotlobbers accomplish this time? Well, they put more damage onto the shooters who were healed up in the last turn, but can't waver them again. And the spitters and the breath attack salvo put 10 damage onto Grokkamok's finest braves. So they are looking a little bit vulnerable now. There is a lot of healing to go around, but there are multiple damaged units to worry about. Critter's Call puts 1 damage onto the boomers who are just behind the hill, partially on it. So they won't be able to shoot next turn, which is nice because I want them to be charging me instead. And there's how it looks. So you can see down here, I've got the Troll Bruiser staring into the flank a little bit. So if those boomers want to charge, if any of them want to charge into the troll unit there, they're then going to have a little bit of a tricky situation because they've got a bruiser looking in from the left, and there's a troll horde just loitering behind Grogger's goons there, slightly to the right of that forest, and they are in range to charge anyone in the flank who potentially charges into the trolls and doesn't kill them. And even if they do kill them and turn towards those trolls, they could then be rear-charged by a bruiser. And there's the mincer there as well, so whichever way you face, it's not going to be fun times. So I'm very glad that Critter's Call prevented one of those boomer hordes from shooting, because if they had the option to shoot, I'm sure all 3 of them would have liked to have just sat right where they are, and all of them just scorched that troll horde. So it was always likely that Critter's Call was going to cause at least a wound, though. So that means they're either going to have to do less effective shooting, or they're going to have to go for some kind of charge on those trolls, which is, as I said, very, very dangerous. Turn 2 for the Ogres. So, double charge on one of the Fleabag Sniff units. Now, if they were to roll a double 1 in this one, or just fail to kill the unit by other means, then the Archfiend would be flank charged by trolls. It's mildly risky. We'll see how that goes. And these Tortured Souls countercharge the King. So down here, both hordes of boomers charge into the troll horde that I had in the middle there. So even if these trolls die, I'm guaranteed to get some kind of juicy flank action next time, unless there's some really, really clever pivoting shenanigans that I've not picked up here. And the finest braves and the warriors straight into Grogger's goons, with Grokkamok behind. They're very likely to kill them, but that's not too much of a concern because I've got so much shooting around here. I think I can quite handily kill off 1 or 2 units from that next turn. I'm not sure whether damage has been removed from the Braves. Maybe it hasn't been moved up with them yet. Yeah, there we go, it's at the side of them there. So the Warriors have got 6 damage on them, and the Braves have still got 10 damage on them. So with all that damage, I'm confident that all my little shooting units around here, next turn, even if the goons die, could potentially take out both those hordes there, leaving just Grokkamok and the other heroes running around. Which isn't the best thing, but I think I'm doing quite well in the flanks here. So feeling pretty confident at this stage. What do the shooters and the blizzard accomplish this time? Well, maybe we'll go back to them because, oh look, the healing, first of all, on these guys. So 2 lots of healing gets the Braves down to 2 damage. So they're looking much more healthy now. And now what do the shooters and blizzard accomplish? 2 damage on the trolls. So those are the trolls looking at the shooters. So that means the shooters are accepting they're going to be charged next time. It is going to be hindered. That's fine by me. This might be the blizzard actually. Oh, there we go. Gets them up to 5, but still not enough. So over here, Boomer Sergeant put some damage onto my wizard there. And 4 damage onto the king from the Tortured Souls, but they don't kill him or waver him. And those sniffs die. Now, look at this next picture here. We determined that this Archfiend had a bit of a dilemma, because if he overruns to try and escape from the Troll's charge arc, if he rolled a 1, then he would get flank charged by the Trolls. If he rolled anything above that, he would be safe. And my opponent was not confident enough to go for that risk and decided to just turn around and take the front charge from them instead. And depending how lucky you're feeling, decides whether you would go for that, I suppose, because being out their charge range entirely is of course much safer, but being flank charged by them would mean almost certain death. So the safe option there is probably to turn around. And there's how the units end up after that. So, the Troll Horde, charged by both the Boomer Hordes, do die. Lots of damage done there. But at the end of it, that's all the pivoting and backing up that they can do. So that means the Bruiser has a nice healthy flank charge into the right-hand unit there. And also my Trolls down at the bottom can potentially join in, and the Mincer is there as well, so I'll have to decide how to allocate those charge resources in a minute. And there's how it's looking before the final combat is resolved, which is on Grogger's Goons. And look at that. 19 damage, double 1. So whether that is going to have a huge impact on the game remains to be seen. We shall see. With all the healing that was done to the Grogger's finest Braves, I wasn't as confident in being able to kill both those hordes with my shooting, but now that the goons are still alive, I'm now much more confident in this area. And unless I roll a series of double 1s, I think it's going pretty damn well in the middle there. So, tasty so far. Turn 3 for the Goblins. So, these are the Tortured Souls that just multi-charged the other unit of Sniffs. They are obliterated by 1 regiment of Sniffs and the War Trombone. King does some more damage to those Tortured Souls, again stopping them flying, so it's just being annoying. And the Archfiend takes 9 damage in the front from the Trolls, so yeah, pretty much if he'd been flanked, could have been toast there. The War Trombones do a bit of moving around. One of them gets into a position where it won't be offering any cover from its shot, and all these other units are going to be shooting as well, but they will be suffering from cover. Rotlobbers shoot as well, and they all combine and manage to kill off Grogger's finest Braves, which is very, very nice because the goons countercharged into the warriors. And over here, these trolls are the ones that charged into the shooters. You can see them next to the Blizzard caster there. So the Ogre shooters killed in 1 round. They were already damaged though. So they are toast, and these trolls aren't worried about being charged in the flank by a Warlock. They've turned around to face the big meaty area in the middle. And what did the Spitter Horde accomplish? They waver, I believe that's Nomogrok. And look at this. So, Grogger's Goons waver the warriors, which is very nice, and this area is looking very healthy indeed now. So the Braves are dead, the warriors are wavered, and Grogger's Goons have regenerated 7 of their wounds as well, which is nice. Over here, I elected to charge the Trolls, who are behind the Goons. I decided they weren't needed in the centre at this point, because the Goons got that nice double 1 to survive, so they went into the front of those Boomers. The Bruiser went into the flank, as I pointed out, and the Mincer went into the other unit to try and get a bit of damage on them, and ultimately wavers them. They were already hurt as well. So it's looking very, very healthy indeed for the Goblins right now. As far as the scenario goes, the Mincer is still carrying the tokens, but that's always vulnerable. But I've got plenty of units around here who could potentially pick up the tokens if they were to be dropped. My opponent doesn't have tokens at the moment, but there are 3 Ogre heroes around there that could pick them up. So, and the middle one is still unclaimed. So the right-hand side of the battlefield really isn't impacting the scenario too much. All it's doing is preventing the flyers and the fast harassment units from getting involved in the game, which allows it to be this big meat grinder in the middle. So this is the Ogre turn now, and Grogger's is charging into Grogger's Goons. And you can see that the unit of warriors have turned round because those trolls that just killed the shooters would be in charge range. So with their waver, they might as well just turn around and face that threat and hope to survive. Nomogrok, I believe, offers a rear to these trolls just to get in front of them to stop them getting involved with any of the more important units. And the Boomer Sergeant moves into the flank of the Mincer to do some breath attack action into the less defended part. And the Blizzard Warlock just moves around a little bit behind those trolls. You can see that the Mincer has taken some damage there from the Boomer Sergeant, but not enough for it yet. What does Blizzard accomplish? It does 4 damage to the Flaggit, who's behind the goons at the moment. Taking him out would deprive me of quite a lot of inspiring, but it's only a waiver. And the Mincer is double 1, but it's not that big of a double 1 because it wasn't hugely close to death. On average, it probably should have died, but it's not as ridiculous as the one on the goons earlier. And over here, there is a waiver on the king, so that means he's not going to be able to disrupt those tortured souls for another turn. And the Archfiend retaliates with 4 damage onto the trolls. So I'm confident in that battle. So you can see here that Grogger's goons have been killed by Grok-Gamok, who then falls back and lands on the tokens and picks them up. So I'm still pretty confident. I think I can kill quite a few units next turn. Let's see. Turn 4 for the Goblins. So the trolls regenerate most of their wounds and kill the Archfiend. So this flank is looking very healthy now. Sniffs shoot up the tortured souls a bit, but not much, so they are going to be able to fly off next turn with the king being wavered. These are the trolls that killed the shooters. They steam into the front of the freshly turned round warriors, get them up to 12 damage, and out comes my double 1. So this whole area, there's a lot of failure to kill going on here. However, these trolls do chomp through, I believe it was Nomagorok. If it wasn't him, then it was one of the warlocks. And what do the Rotlobbers do? Along with the combined might of the War Trombones, and the Spitter Horde, and the Spitter Regiment, well, they just annihilate Grok-Gamok. I think 1 rock landed on him, and the rest of those units combined just turned him into a big, steaming, toasty mess of ogre dust. And the push tokens have been dropped on the ground. So the Bruiser and the Mincer combined to finish off the other unit of boomers there, the ones that were thus far alive. And the Mincer just moves forward, and the Bruiser is turning to face that boomer sergeant. And what does this Rotlobber do? Well, it lands on the boomer sergeant and puts 5 damage on him. So another wide shot, and the ogres are running out of units, but the tokens are still very much up for grabs. It's not over yet. Turn 4 for the ogres. So tortured souls fly off into the war trombone, which is the only target that would have prevented them being the target of a charge, I think. Although there is still the king up there who is in range to turn round and charge them in a minute, unless they overrun far enough. And the warriors are going to countercharge my troll horde in the middle there. And you can see that the warlock has moved up onto the hill there to get out of the way of any of my nasty attacks. And the boomer sergeant continues dancing around and toasts the Mincer again, and I think it's likely to die this time. And that's just looking at how those units are positioned in the centre around those tokens that Grok-Gamok dropped. And the Blizzard Warlock has just moved away along to the side a little bit, and then Blizzard's one of the War Trombones onto 4 damage, and the other one took damage as well, which would have been from that Warlock. So one took 4, one took 3. They both become wavered, so they're not going to be shooting next time. And the Mincer does get killed from that Boomer Sergeant attack and drops the tokens on the floor, but right next to the Bruiser, so the Bruiser is going to be able to pick them up next turn. And the War Trombone is killed there. Only 5 damage done by the Tortured Souls, so they didn't do very well, but they still killed it. So no War Trombones firing next turn. And the Ogre Warriors, who were just double 1, turned round and killed the Troll Horde that charged them. So adding insult to injury there. So they're in a position to possibly pick up some tokens, but they are very much at death's door, and there are still multiple units in range to attack them. So looking at that situation there, let's just go back to this image a sec. So what I'm going to do here, the Spitter Regiment, if I had no one to charge that unit with, would have been one of the shooting units to target the ogres in the middle there, but the trolls want to charge them, so I can pick up that triple stack of tokens, and the Spitter Regiment down there are going to flank charge those ogres, and then they're going to turn after the kill towards the middle token, just for a bit of security. So there's how it's looking. Very, very white in the basing sense. There's not many ogre units left at all. turn 5 for the Goblins. So the king steams down from his perch higher up and put some damage on those Tortured Souls, tying them up further. The other trolls decide they're not going to get involved in the game much, so they're just going to head for the middle, just in case of the turn 7, maybe they could get involved in something. And here you can see the Spitter Regiment and the trolls combine. I think they only managed to do 1 damage between them, though, to that Ogre Warrior horde, but it was still just enough to kill them, luckily. But very, very poor attack rolls. And down here, what does my little shooting battery get up to? So we've got lightning bolt and all those bows, and a rock lob, and other rock lobs. Well, all that combined only manages to get 3 damage onto that warlock. But it looks like they also kill the Boomer Sergeant, actually. Yep, that's right. So the Boomer Sergeant dead from shooting 3 damage onto the warlock. And not very eventful, because there's not many enemy units left, so it's really just shuffling about. So you can see my trolls in the middle picked up all those 3 tokens, and the spitters are in position to grab that 1 token in a minute, and the Bruiser is still just hanging out with his 3 tokens. You can see he actually... I'm not sure he's quite in the enemy half yet, so he's going to have to move a little bit further to get the bonus for having the tokens in the opposition half, but he's well on his way. So I think we're into the Ogre turn now, and the Tortured Souls charge into the King again. And these characters have just positioned themselves to have a quick toasting session of the Bruiser and get him up to 3 damage and waver him, which is very annoying. But he is still going to be able to move backwards towards the enemy. And the King is dead. Long live the Tortured Souls. You can see that they've life-leeched wounds back every time they fight as well, these Tortured Souls, so they are quite annoying to take out. And look at that live measuring action there. Now, here's the dilemma that my opponent was in here. The way I'd positioned the sniffs, if he wanted to overrun after killing the King and roll the 6, he would have made contact with those sniffs and been able to fight them as well. However, if he rolled kind of a mediocre, a 4 or a 5, I think he would have been giving the sniffs a flank charge on them. So he decided not to risk it and just leave them there instead of overrunning. Now, I'm not sure, I think there was a possible pivot situation that could have been employed here that would have kept the sniffs in the front, but also meant that they would have had to touch the wall to make the charge. Looking at the angles here, it looks like it would have been possible to do that. But the sniffs are just as good at shooting as they are at charging, but of course I would want to charge because the Tortured Souls need to be disrupted, but I think they may actually just fall back an inch instead of doing that to try and get onto the wall that way, but they only fall back 1 inch. So yeah, there were some options there. It's a very interesting situation though. Do you risk going for an overrun where if you don't get a high enough number, then you are being probably flanked? I'm not sure the pictures represent it very well, but I think that was the situation we were in there. Okay, turn 6, potentially the last Goblin turn now, so I need to get tokens and preferably in enemy territory. So the sniffs do go for the charge on the Tortured Souls, and a little bit of damage done there, so they're not going to be flying off. The Spitters Regiment in the middle pick up the middle token. The Rocklobber lands some hits on that Warlock, and the Trolls have taken the tokens and moved onto the hill, so they are fully in enemy territory now. And the Bruiser moves further into enemy territory as well, and I think I just move him backwards and possibly forget to turn him around, so he is actually open to a flank charge, which I'm not worried about because they're just Warlocks. But I think one of them might be Nomagorok, actually. So I didn't realise that he had that many attacks, so maybe I would have turned the Bruiser. But we'll see. A bit of damage done there, I think. Or maybe that's just the movement. Oh no, this is into the Ogre turn now. There was just no picture of the turn dice there. So this is the wizarding abilities onto the Spitter Regiment. Wavers them. That means they're still carrying the token at the end of turn 6. And the Bruiser is charged in the flank, so I think this one's Nomagorok. I think I was getting them mixed up. But you can see why, because they're all kind of ogre, wizardy looking characters. So this one actually had more attacks than I was anticipating, so I was a little bit concerned, but didn't manage to kill the Bruiser, just a waver. And those sniffs are still alive as well after the counter charge there. There's how it's looking at the end of turn 6, and what do you know, that's the end of the game. There is not another turn, so it's a hefty win for the Goblins. I've got maximum victory points, all the tokens, and I'm pretty sure all of them, all the units carrying them are fully in the enemy half. I'm not sure about the spitters in the middle. They may be kind of straddling the middle line there, but it's very, very hefty amount of points. A big kill point discrepancy as well, and that was very, very successful looking at it from this angle. So it all worked out to plan pretty much. Some things went better than expected. For example, the goons, the horde in the middle, being double wand at a crucial time, which was almost paid back when the troll horde double wand the warriors, and then as a result were killed immediately afterwards. So a little bit of payback for that. Overall, I think it was a very, very successful test of this list, which is in preparation for a tournament. And I have made a couple of tweaks heading into the tournament, though, from this list. So I was thinking, if I'm going to go all out with just this artillery barrage, why don't I throw some blizzard in there as well? So for the tournament, I've tweaked my list and changed the wizard's layout a bit. So the one that's mounted no longer has Critter's Call. That wizard now has blizzard and the piercing item, which is what the Warlock had in this game. So blizzard, but with piercing. So that's going to be 5 really dangerous, piercing, long-range, indirect attacks. Now, my other option after that was to maybe go for Guiding Light, but I feel like you have to get too close to the enemy sometimes to use that with one of the wizards. So I was thinking the kind of units I want to target with those weapons are often far away anyway. So I'm not going to go for Guiding Light. I'm not going to invest all those points in just an artillery attack with a wizard focused on that. I'm going to stick with Critter's Call, but put it on the foot wizard. And then I can use that on any really dangerous enemy units. For example, if I'm against elves or Twilightkin, if they've got an archer horde or crossbow horde, that wizard can just dip his toe to within 24 inches, Critter's Call them, disorder them for a turn, while I can march up towards them with one of my fighter units unmolested and give me more of a shooting superiority there. So I think those are the only real tweaks. I think I've taken Banner of the Griffin off the Bruiser as well to pay for those upgrades and downgraded him to the Blade of Slashing, and also taken one of the upgrades off the Troll Hordes as well. So we'll see if all that pays off. It's a very shooting heavy list. I think it's just a very painful list for certain armies in general. It's designed to deal with kind of the long-range camping potential lists that you could see from someone like Twilightkin, who could just be hiding chariots or crossbow hordes in the woods, dropping rocks on them, dropping blizzard now on them, and Critter's Calling them as well, so I can actually get towards them if I need to without being turned into troll-shaped pincushions. So we'll see how that goes at the tournament, which is this weekend. It's a 2-dayer, so there'll probably be a report on Monday or Tuesday sort of time. And you can look forward to that very much indeed. 5 games of red-hot, steaming, ice-cold goodness it'll be. And hopefully all those games go as well as this one. So, there you go. Very successful game. And we've got a nice little picture of one of my rock lobbers, which is the old Goblin Doom Diver, the metal one. Get a close-up of my paintwork there, including the beautiful yellow eye. In anticipation of this tournament, I've just painted up 3 new goblin heads, in case anyone beats me, because I ran out after the last tournament. So if I lose 2 or 3 games on the first day, I may be scrambling to paint up another one the next day. Although I'm thinking of instituting a policy where if someone already has a goblin head and they beat me again, then maybe they don't get a second head. That would save me quite a lot of goblin head painting, I think. I'm going to lose to the same people multiple times. Right, don't forget to leave any comments on the lists or the game in general, or if you spotted any rules that were done incorrectly. Of course, feel free to drop those in there, especially if all 10 of you spot the same mistake and all leave a lengthy comment on it. That's always very much appreciated, especially when you ignore everything else that happened in the game to focus on that one tiny mistake. It's just the way the internet goes sometimes. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description, various social media shenanigans, the Facebook group, Twitter, all the fundraising nonsense down there. Basically, send me all your money if you like this content. And with that, all that remains to be said is good night out there. Whatever.